What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Louisville week, the bye week. Kind of talked about general topics, but now it's time to gear down, get ready for Louisville. So we're going to talk about the 5 key matchups in this game, which I think is a perfect challenge for Miami coming out of the bye week, given what Miami has struggled with the last 2 weeks. Louisville is in an even better position to exploit those weaknesses than Virginia Tech and Cal. So if Miami wants to show they're buttoning that up, perfect opponent to do it, but it will not be easy. First, I want to talk about some folks that are always buttoned up. That is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Hop in, Pete.
What's up, D? Yeah, man, this is a very interesting matchup this week, man. Just looking at a lot of Louisville stuff the last few days here. A lot of talent on this team. A lot of guys, as Mario Cristobal said in his press conference yesterday, a lot where there's familiarity on both sides. Whether, you know, we know there's some transfers from Miami over there, but guys that were recruited by Miami or from the South Florida area. Obviously, Tyler Shuck, the quarterback, was a Mario recruit at Oregon there. And again, just watching some of these highlights and watching some of their games. Obviously, 4-2 on the season, losses to Notre Dame and SMU, which are very quality opponents there, and those were one-score games. But a lot of individual talent on this Louisville team.
Yeah, a lot of South Florida guys. When you talk about Thornton, the corner, Chaney and Brown at tailback, Ja'Cory Brooks, a wide receiver, Ashton Gillotte, Stanquan Clark, their leading tackler. They're probably the 2 best players on defense, along with Quincy Riley, who we'll talk about. A lot of South Florida guys. Renato Brown, a starting guard for this team. So this is a South Florida heavy roster. A lot of motivated guys. To me, I've said it a few times, the best quarterback that Miami is going to face the entire season, in my opinion, is Tyler Shuck. The best play caller Miami's going to face the entire season is, I'll call them the Braun brothers, right? Both of those guys, the head coach and the offensive coordinator together. That's the best that Miami is going to face. And then skill position, they got guys that can get it done. Very explosive offense, an offense that lives in terms of big plays. So just a quick stat to start you off before we get to the individual matchups. This jumps out to me is, Louisville, when you look at their 40-plus yard plays, they are one of the absolute best in the country, second in the nation behind only Ole Miss. Miami, 82nd in allowing 40-plus yard plays. You saw it against California. You saw it against VTech. These explosive plays really have killed Miami the last 2 games. So you go from that weakness to playing the team that's best positioned to exploit that weakness. And that sounds bad on paper, obviously a road game as well. But if you want to prove that you're beyond those mistakes, you've tightened those up over the bye week, you're not that team, this is the perfect opportunity to do it against a very talented Louisville offense.
Yeah, Mario said yesterday a lot of those big plays come down to eye discipline from the defense. So, look, he said practice has been, was really good late in the week last week. Obviously, recovering from coming back from Cal there and having the bye week. And he said he expects to have the best practice of the season today. So we'll see what happens, man. I expect the defense to be prepared for sure. But regardless, man, we'll get into these matchups now. But a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. But offensively, man, really some guys who have some game-breaking ability there for Louisville.
No question about it. And, it's the offense is going to score. I think we know that. It's about limiting the damage and then allowing your offense to win, which should be a very big mismatch for Miami's offense against Louisville's defense. Louisville's defense has not been very good this year. Miami's offense has been either the best or top 3 in the nation by whatever metric you want to use. So it's strength and weakness, strength on weakness. Whose weakness is going to be better that day? Whose strength is going to be sharp? That's really the story of this Louisville game. And let's start actually with Miami on the offensive end, Pete, and Louisville on the defensive end with a very familiar name to some in South Florida. That is Ashton Gillotte, the defensive end from Louisville, originally from Boca Raton. He has 24 career sacks, and he'll be going against Jalen Rivers, who is returning. We reported yesterday, it wasn't a big scoop. I mean, Cristobal said it, that Jalen Rivers would be coming back to play this game. I think that was always the target, was after the bye week. That was always what we were hearing, Pete, off the record, that really after the bye week, they were aiming to get Rivers in there. Markel Bell, I thought, did an excellent job. You talked about it. You had the post this morning on Instagram. You follow us at CanesInSight and Twitter and everything else, kind of showing the clips of Mario really talking up Markel Bell before the season, and now after Markel Bell's had a few games, they like what he's done. He's going to continue to play in certain ways. But Rivers is going to be a starting left tackle. He's earned that. He's the best offensive lineman on the team from a consistency standpoint, going against Ashton Gillotte. So just getting in the numbers here before we dive into this, because I know you've been watching film on this on these guys. I have as well. Gillotte got 24 career sacks. So something that, production at that position, I think, is huge. It speaks for itself. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat at that position, but if you're getting to the quarterback consistently, you're doing it right. Miami 28th in the nation in sack percentage against, so basically 28th in pass protection, let's say. Sack percentage, stat I always use, what percentage of dropbacks result in sacks, whether you're rushing or you're protecting. That's, to me, the key stat, only against FBS opponents to calculate it. Miami 28th in the nation. Louisville, on their side, 115th in sack percentage. So basically, I'm using fancy names, 28th pass protection versus 115th pass rush. Major advantage to Miami on paper, plus you bring Rivers back. But all it takes is a couple plays from Gillotte to wreck the game.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this matchup to me is you see Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl, his tweet here on Gillotte last week. He says some NFL teams get caught up in measurables and testing, but the ones that just focus on taking good football players will like Louisville edge Ashton Gillotte, and he has his measurables there. To me, the thing that's interesting about it is he's almost the defensive version of Jalen Rivers, if you think about it that way. Very productive player, experienced, and you're not going to be looking at with Jalen Rivers, him as your prototypical offensive tackle at the next level, right? As we've talked about, he might probably play inside in the NFL. And with Gillotte, you're not looking at a guy who is like these 4'3", 4'4", freakazoids, 6'6", with this huge wingspan, right? But very powerful, strong, great hands, as Jim Nagy pointed out there. And to me, it's experience on experience here, right? So, look, could Gillotte get him? Of course he can, but I think over the course of the game, Jalen Rivers should be set up here. Of course, first game back, right? So how will he, be affected by that time off? We will see. But this is a guy who's a terror off the edge for Louisville.
Yeah, and it's not just the first rush. It's the second and third efforts, which Rivers has to stay attached to. Of course, with a guy like Cam Ward, he holds on to the ball a lot. That's part of his game. He does it even when he has good protection because he wants to make a bigger play down the field. Gilotte's not going to stop and give up on a rush. He's going to continue till that ball is in the air. So, look, if this guy gets one sack and forced fumble, the crowd's going insane. The game's totally changed. He is someone you have to watch out for on every snap, every second of the snap, because it's not just the initial rush with him. He's going to fight until there's no time left on that clock and until the play is done. So very important matchup to watch between a Jacksonville kid versus a Boca kid out there on the edge. So another matchup here I want to talk about on the edge, but let's go a little further on the edge. That's going to be Miami's outside wide receivers against Quincy Riley. So Quincy Riley is Louisville's best defensive back. He is a cornerback, somebody who was a mid-round NFL draft pick, projected preseason All-America type guy that has just a lot of accolades, and he's been considered one of the best, if not the absolute best corner in the ACC. Louisville's missed him for the last couple games. He's been banged up, played a little bit, but not in full strength. Of course, he's going to be healthier now, you think, going against Miami's outside receivers. And Miami's outside receivers have been up and down. Isaiah Horton has been excellent. I think we feel very good about him, other than one play maybe he could have made last week. He was pretty much outstanding and has been that way all year. Jacoby George, Sam Brown, a little more ups and downs, particularly some of the discipline stuff with Jacoby George. You don't want him getting in with Riley and getting that kind of thing going where you're distracted from the job at hand and focus on the after the whistle stuff with a player like Riley who comes in with a reputation. This, to me, is going to be a key matchup. Of course, it's not just Riley. On the other side, you have Corey Thornton, number 2 corner for Louisville, who's actually a Booker T grad. I think he's related to
Tyquan Thornton. Yeah, but I want to say they're cousins.
But he's someone I watched in high school. Physical guy, has some traits. Booker T kid that went to UCF, developed well, now is at Louisville. So that's going to be a matchup that you're going to see the whole game. I'm sure there's going to be some jawing with these two and our guys, like we mentioned. But who is going to step up? Is this going to be the game where Jacoby George just explodes? Is this going to be a game where Sam Brown finally gets going? Is Horton going to continue his ascension? Or are they all going to struggle and you're going to see the defense basically compress on Restrepo and Arroyo, who are your two best players to this point on the in the passing game? Very interesting matchup to watch for me.
And the thing with Riley is he has amazing ball skills, 14 career interceptions as a corner. Obviously there's a 6 year of eligibility and he has missed some time. He was at Middle Tennessee State previously. But man, 14 career interceptions is pretty crazy. So talk about Cam Ward and avoiding turnovers. We know that he does like to trust his receivers and let them go out there and make plays on the football. And we have seen there hasn't been a ton of respect for Miami's outside receivers at times this year, the way that teams have played them, right? And we've mentioned this on shows before. So really an interesting matchup there. A guy with a ton of experience. So that battle is going to be one to watch.
Yeah, and I think tackling might be a weakness with Riley, at least based on what I saw against Virginia. He missed a lot of tackles. He just didn't look very physical, particularly in that game. That might be a way you can get a Sam Brown going. Isaiah Horton has been very physical after the catch. Jacoby George, not particularly physical after the catch, but he has enough quickness and elusiveness that he can hurt you on some of those screens and make you miss. So all three of those guys is who's going to be able to put pressure on Riley as a tackler and maybe soften up that matchup a little bit as opposed to just playing him to his strengths, which is playing the ball and getting in the receivers' heads. Excited to see that matchup on the outside. But talked about the experience that Quincy Riley has. Let's talk about one of the most experienced restaurants in South Florida, and certainly the number one Cuban restaurant in South Florida, which means the number one Cuban restaurant in the world, Islas Canarias. Not just at the classic location out there out west. It is now in the center, right there in Dadeland, in the dining pavilion. Very easy to locate, very easy to see. I mean, most of you guys who live in Dade County are driving by Dadeland at some point during the week. A lot of people use the metro. A lot of people just go there to shop. Go to the dining pavilion, get the classic Islas Canarias menu. If you know, any Cuban will tell you. You say the name Islas Canarias, they know what that means. It means the best croquetas in Miami, the best croquetas in the world, and all kinds of classic Cuban items. Plus, people have been asking me, where do you get your Croqueta County shirts that you wear on the Wednesday show? CroquetaCounty.com. That's the merchandising part of this Islas Canarias experience. Again, I've been wearing the merch, and people always ask me in the comments, where do you get that merch? That is going to be at CroquetaCounty.com. And then Islas Canarias is the restaurant in the dining pavilion, the absolute best in the business.
Look at this. They got the jackfruit ropa vieja here for you.
Oh, I'm all in. I'm all in. That's me. I know some people are going to be offended by that selection. And look, there's plenty of pork, plenty of the classics. This is a classic place. They do have some new school stuff for some of the new school Cubans, but they have the classic. That's why you see so many OGs posted up at Islas Canarias all the time. They got the classic menu. But yeah, I will be having the jackfruit.
So next matchup we're going to take a look at here, Miami's linebackers and safeties against the tight ends of Louisville, and they have some athleticism there without a doubt. Jamari Johnson, explosive player at tight end for them.
Yeah, and this one's interesting because this was not so much about, at least for me, I didn't put this in here because of the matchup that you have with Jamari Johnson. He's been productive this year. It's more about what we saw last year, which is if you watch the game, and you guys can remember that game in Hard Rock Stadium, Louisville's tight ends had 112 yards, and it seemed like those 112 yards were like 400 yards because they were so critical and so backbreaking. The safeties, Camp Kitchens, James Williams, I wasn't in the meeting room, but it didn't seem like they had their best game. The linebackers and coverage didn't have their best game. That was, to me, when I think back to that game, the story was the Louisville's tight ends and their ability to get open consistently and make back-breaking plays that kept Miami from closing the gap and winning that game on defense. So will Miami be able to slow down Louisville's tight ends this year? Ja'Cory Brooks is going to present a whole host of problems on the outside, maybe different than what Louisville had last year. Shuck is a better quarterback than what Louisville had. So you got a lot of other matchups and players to worry about that you did not have to worry about last year with a mediocre quarterback and less talent on the outside. They did have Thrash, who was a good player, but overall they didn't have a guy like Brooks with his size. So with that going to be a focus of the game plan, are the tight ends still going to make an impact and hurt you like they did last year? That's up to Coach Guidry, the linebackers, and the safeties to slow those guys down.
Yeah, and it's not only Jamari Johnson, Mark Redmond, another guy that they have over there who, has played a lot of football in his career, played at Washington, San Diego State as well. And I mean, San Diego State had 38 catches for 408 yards last year, right? So, and then this year, 8 receptions, 121 yards, so 15.1 yards per reception. So they got a couple tight ends there, and you'll be sure that they'll be in the game plan on Saturday.
No, looking forward to watching that, and hopefully it's a quiet matchup.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll see how much we're looking forward to it come about 3:00 on Saturday. But I agree with you, big opportunity here. And listen, Coach Guidry, I think he's heard some of the talk this week. He said they got a good game plan this week, and he thinks they'll come out and play well. So
yeah. By the way, one match I'll be looking forward to the rest of the week. The rest of the year is the Gators against whoever they're playing. You got Kentucky this week at home, then at Georgia in Jacksonville. You got at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then Florida State to give them a break at the end of the year. As you can see, I'm wearing my Gator Tier shirt, available at the CanesInSight shop. You can see that at CanesInsight.com. You can see it in the description if you want to click the link, get some of the merch like this Gator Tier shirt. But we're enjoying the Gator Tiers every week. I could see a situation where this ball club loses their next 6 games, which would end them on a 7-game losing streak, bringing that 3-9 on the year. Recruiting class could be fair game at that point. I'm going to give you a major recruiting update later this week, but certainly Ben Hanks, Vernell Brown, front and center at Miami's recruiting targets.
D, before we get to the next matchup here, I wanted to talk about our friends at Asset Dash, the best portfolio tracker and rewards program in crypto, where you can do everything from tracking your investments, earning rewards, and now buying over 1,000 different cryptocurrencies on Solana natively through the app. You can scan the QR code right here to download Asset Dash for all of your portfolio tracking needs, crypto, NFTs, stocks. If you invest in something, Asset Dash supports it. And remember, enter the code CANES, all caps, CANES, all caps, at sign up to receive an upgraded premium Asset Dash Gold membership, free for life. This is a limited time offer only. Again, assetdash.com.
We'll see the assets are dashing here on Saturday. Hopefully assets like Ruben Bain and Tyler Barron. These are great student athletes. They're not only assets, but certainly they're going to be assets to an NFL team down the road. Hopefully those guys are getting to the quarterback and making things happen. We'll talk about that matchup in a second. But more broadly, Lance Guidry versus Jeff Brom, Brian Brom, however you want to dice it up. This was a matchup that Louisville won decisively last year. The play calling in that game, it seemed like they were always right on target. The pace and the feel of it, just backbreaking play after backbreaking play. It wasn't just athletic plays by the Louisville skill position guys. It was just the right call at the right time, guys running wide open, guys confused on the Miami side, and Louisville in total control with an offense that really did not have a ton of explosive playmakers. Honestly, a lot less talent than it has this year, and they killed Miami for 38 points. To me, we talked about the top. This is one of the most explosive offenses in the country statistically for Louisville, second in the nation in 40-plus yard plays, ahead of Miami, which is the number 1 offense in the country overall. Miami, 82nd in allowing 40-plus yard plays. This is the weakness of the defense. If you look at Miami's metrics on defense, they're pretty good, except for these allowing explosive plays, which is Louisville's number 1 strength. So if you're Lance Guidry, your defense had 2 tough weeks in a row. They've had a particular weakness with these explosive plays, communication, eye discipline, missed tackles, various reasons why you're allowing so many explosive plays. You are now going against the absolute best in the ACC and one of the best in the country at creating explosive plays. You're going against an offensive coordinator and a head coach who really made you look bad last year calling plays. And that was a game where people look back negatively on the matchup. And they think back to that game, they say, Brom really took Miami's lunch. If you're talking about a statement for Lance Guidry, and he's not going to be out there playing, but he's had a week to prepare, extra week to prepare. If there was ever a statement game for Lance Guidry to say, this is who we are as a defense, this is how we adjust, this is how we grow, you're not going to get us twice this is the game and the matchup with the Braun brothers.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had so much talk about Miami's offense last year, but Miami actually outgained Louisville in this game last year, 486 to 470. So yeah, you could put this loss on the defense. I see Restrepo with 8 receptions, 193 yards in that one. So obviously he'll be high on their radar this week. But no, I think Coach Guidry will rebound, so to speak. Obviously, a lot of it's on the players as well. But you give a guy like him a week to prepare. And I say this with a lot of coaches, D, like these guys are all hired in the first place for one reason, but being hard-headed, you can't be hard-headed. I do not see Coach Guidry as a guy who's very hard-headed. I see him as a guy who has the ability to adjust. We've seen it in game a lot. So let's see what the game plan is this week, but definitely excited for that matchup.
Yeah, and bye weeks are all about self-scouting. You mentioned not being hard-headed, adjusting, being humble about what you see on your own film. That's what bye weeks are. Self-scout and recruiting. That's what bye weeks are for. And the recruiting part, we know that's been handled, and Mario's all over the place, had his assistants all over the place. The self-scout part, you have 2 games for Guidry of allowing a lot of explosive plays to offenses that weren't explosive. That's really the red flag. When I see Miami 82nd and 40-plus yard plays, the big problem with that is you haven't faced teams that are creating those plays. Virginia Tech was not that explosive before you played them. You made them look that explosive. California was definitely not that explosive. They had their most explosive game probably in 2 years against your team. So a team like Louisville doesn't need Miami's help to be explosive. They're number 2 in the country right now in that respect. So is Miami going to make them even more explosive or keep their pace? Or is Miami going to play at a level that disrupts Louisville and takes them off their game? And in doing so, changes some of the narratives of the season. That to me is this story this weekend, which is why I'm excited about the matchup. Even though it's a tough matchup, it's the matchup this defense needs to prove to the nation and to prove to themselves that they can get it done and tighten up.
Yeah, really good litmus test game without a doubt. And then the last matchup we will look at here, Ruben Bain against Trevante Sylvester and Monroe Mills on the offensive line there for Louisville.
Yeah, Monroe Mills injured his knee. It sounds like he's out for this game, but you'll never know for sure. So I put him in there. That's Louisville's starting left tackle. Their backup, Trevante Sylvester, has a tough task. He's either going to be facing Bain, he's going to be facing Barron, he's going to be facing Messidor, he's going to be facing Alston. He's going to be, it's a mix and match with the way Guidry attacks. But when you don't have your starting left tackle, your best pass protector, and you're going against this pass rush, it is a major, major weakness, especially when your quarterback 6'5", 6'6", good athlete for his size. Definitely a good athlete for his size. I think he's going to be an NFL draft pick, Tyler Shuck, but he's not like Jordan Travis, where he's going to be running around too much. So looking at the stats, Louisville 45th in sack percentage against. Again, that's with their starting left tackle. They're kind of the reverse of Miami. Miami's getting their left tackle back. Louisville is losing their left tackle most likely. Miami 18th in sack percentage nationally. Good number. I think Miami, with the way this defense is constructed, where you don't have the most proven secondary, the most NFL talent in your secondary, you want this to be a pass rush oriented team. I think for Miami to be where they need to be on defense to maximize this season and get the most wins they possibly can. I don't expect them to ever be dominant on defense this year because they just don't have the top to bottom players in the back end particularly. But this could be a very effective defense to complement the number 1 offense if you are rushing the passer, getting up the field, kind of like the Indianapolis Colts with Freeney and Mathis. 18th in sack percentage is good for pretty much most teams in the country. I think Miami wants to be in that top 10, and the return of Ruben Bain is going to get you a lot closer to that top 10 range.
Well, and the thing with Sylvester here, if he does end up starting, if Mills can't go, he's listed as 6'6", 280, D. So definitely a leaner build at tackle, and obviously we understand Ruben Bain, the power that he plays with that bull rush, with that club move that he utilizes. So, and this is not a guy who played a whole ton of football at Houston either. He was their backup over there as well. So has some athletic ability, but not sure if he has that play strength that we talk about so much in the trenches there. And I think could be a really big advantage for Ruben Bain in that matchup.
Yeah, Pete, that's an incredible point. I totally agree. So with Sylvester, again, I haven't studied him in huge depth. We'll do that as we get closer to the game and break down some of the Louisville personnel with the Louisville beat writer. But what I've seen from Sylvester, exactly what you said, Pete, leaner, not that powerful. He is a former basketball player. He's a former tight end. He's a former defensive end. So he's your classic tall guy that you put weight on, use the athleticism to build up to a very good tackle down the road, hopefully. He's a redshirt junior, so he's had time. He's still only 280, not overly powerful, and he is going against the most powerful defensive end, in my opinion, in the nation, in Ruben Bain.
And D, you look at the picture I have here of him. The shoulder doesn't seem to have, a very wide shoulders, right? And so again, this sort of stuff could get clipped up in a week after the game if he holds Ruben Bain to nothing there. But again, I think this could be a favorable matchup for Miami.
No, look, it's a matchup game, and when you have a guy who his strength is athleticism going against Ruben Bain, I don't love that matchup, because what Ruben Bain is going to challenge with him is not going to be his ability to catch him on the outside rush. Although, Ruben Bain's a handful for anybody with that outside rush. When you're talking about a guy who's 6'2", 285, Ruben Bain is, with tremendous lower body explosion, ability to bend, and powerful hands and good technique coming into you, and you're the same weight but 4 inches taller, and you're a basketball player by trade and a tight end by trade, are you going to be able to anchor up enough that he's not just going to walk you right back to that quarterback and allow a Barron or an Elijah Alston to clean up?
Now, yeah, it's one thing, like, he can beat him to the spot. He's an athletic guy, but I think Bain has a chance to just play right through him.
If you substitute Bain for Raheem Messidor, same problem. And Tyler Barron is 260. So it's not just Bain, although Bain, I agree, is the worst possible matchup for this style of player. It's Miami in general has 3 big defensive ends who are going to challenge this guy's anchor consistently. That's going to be, I think, a problem. They're better on the right side. Louisville does have one of the top ranked, and make sure I'm getting his name right, the big dude that they have out there, number 68, Mike Gonzalez, who's going to be an NFL player. They've played him all over the line. I believe he'll be playing right tackle for this matchup. This guy, he's really probably more of a guard, but he's a North Carolina kid who is, I believe, an NFL draft pick. Big dude. So he'll have more success matching these guys physically. But, when you have 4 guys that can get up to the passer, 5 guys that get up to the passer, one offensive lineman is not going to make a huge difference.
So, D, as we do every day here, we want to get to the post of the day, the Miami HTS post of the day, and I'll let you, kind of bask in your glory here as we like to do, pulling up some old posts here. And we have a post here on Ashton Gillotte this week that you had from years ago.
Yeah, I try not to do my own post as the post of the day, but sometimes it's necessary to tell a story. And really, what I want to say is CanesInSight, and you can go back, look at, we had posters, Memnon, one of the best posters we have, posting about Cam Ward right when he was starting getting Incarnate Awards, saying this guy should be someone Miami looks at. Most players on the schedule that are impactful players, we can go back as long as we want. We can go back. This is an archive that goes back to 2011 with 7 million posts. So identifying players early, seeing what guys look like in high school, seeing why we didn't recruit a guy that ended up being good or the opposite. It's just one of the cool things about CanesInsight.com's free community and the forums in general, which are just so active with 7 million posts, is that you can go back and look. And if you go back and look at my post and what year this is, 2021, 2020, you can find a lot of things that are very wrong, and I do not want to be highlighting on any kind of podcast, but this one's relevant to this week. So, Ashton Gillotte, he's at this point, I think he was like almost a no-star player from Boca High School, defensive end and tight end. I spotlighted him as somebody I think that people should pay attention to at that time. 87 tackles, 16 sacks, he had a ton of tackles for loss as well, played offense. He had offers from Vanderbilt, Maryland, schools like that, FIU, but it was clearly, to me, an emerging player. You could see the motor, you could see the two-way athleticism. He was also a weightlifter. I believe he played lacrosse, I want to say. He played another sport that was not football. So a lot of things, and he played tight end, and he scored touchdowns, which to me, I like to see defensive players scoring touchdowns. That's just a personal thing I've noticed when you go back and look at these guys that outperform their recruiting rankings as defensive players. When you go back and look at their high school film, a lot of times those guys are scoring touchdowns. whether it's on defense or offense or special teams. It's just one of those things that, again, when you go back and look at the 3 stars that make it on defense, they tend to score. This was a guy who was a good tight end as well. I mentioned he was a weightlifter. He did some, he did different things that allowed him to succeed. I think he might have done throwing events as well, like Jalen Rivers, who he's going against here in this matchup. So we like to highlight players like that. One thing I've been pushing on CanesInSight.com for a few years now, and others have joined me, is we think of South Florida receivers. We think of South Florida defensive backs. We need to start thinking about South Florida edge rushers, because that has become the premier position in South Florida overall, whether it's Ruben Bain, who we just talked about, whether it's
Greg Rousseau, Nick Bonito, Dallas Turner. I mean,
the Bosa brothers, Brian Burns. You're just a laundry list of guys at the next level and at this level that have performed at a high level. Elijah Roberts doing really well for Southern Methodist as well. Patrick Payton, who I think has some flaws, but is one of FSU's most highest paid players, let's put it that way, at defensive end. So this has been
not enough of those guys came to Miami.
Not enough. Thank goodness we got Ruben Bain. Yeah, that was one we really needed pretty badly. But Miami needs to do a better job of keeping those edge rushers home. Kenyatta Jackson, I saw him get a sack for Ohio State the other day. Marvin Jones, we'll see what he does at FSU. Shamar Stewart doing some things. So yeah, it's been a position that's been very productive for other schools, not Miami. Ruben Bain's the best of the bunch, at least of the recent crops. So you got him. That's a good start. And I think in general, we've done really well at edge rusher outside of Miami. So we just got to make sure that we're mindful of these kind of guys, that like an Ashton Gillotte, who the production, the two-way talent, the multi-sport talent, the motor stands out. You can grab one of those guys. R. Mason Thomas is another one I should mention for Oklahoma. He's Oklahoma's best pass rusher from Cardinal Gibbons, and he's the best pass rusher in Oklahoma by far right now, outperforming guys that were much higher rated nationally. So those guys are there. Miami needs to continue to get the Ruben Bains of the world. Ashton Gillotte one that I think we could have used. To me, that's a miss by Manny Diaz. And I think if you go back and look at that 2021 class, I believe we got Thomas Davis and Jabari Ishmael in that 21 class. Certainly, if they would have been reading CanesInSight.com, Ashton Gillotte would have been a much better fit for the Miami Hurricanes than either of those two individuals, but you live and you learn. So sign up, 7 million posts and counting.
And then, of course, the post of the day brought to you by Miami HTS, the Hurricane team store. And you see these Alpha Boost, Adidas Alpha Boost shoes. They have them. They're in store. They're in stock. So go check them out here, MiamiHTS.com.
Promo code INSIGHT20, get 20% off your first item. They also have the Cam Ward replica jerseys in adult and youth sizes. Go check those out. You get the basketball jersey too. I know Cam Ward loves to play basketball. So you get the Ward basketball right in time for basketball season. Sure, we got to get Jaleel Thea there. I'm guessing down the road. We'll see what the
Nigel Pack. I mean, bunch of guys.
Yeah, we got jersey guys on this team. So we'll see as the basketball season unfolds. We're going to be covering that front to back for you all. So excited to dive in to basketball when the time comes. But first and foremost, Miami needs to make Louisville feel like a basketball school in this matchup on Saturday. We'll be breaking it down. Tomorrow we got the live show with Mike Ryan, which everybody loves. Thursday and Friday we're going to go behind enemy lines a little bit and really dig into Louisville. But again, appreciate everybody's support. Like and subscribe to this podcast. We're on daily. You know where to find us. Canes.Insight on Instagram, also on Facebook, Twitter. We're around, and CanesInsight.com. Free forums, 7 million posts and counting, most active Canes community on the planet. Thank you guys for joining us.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you, and nobody do it like CanesInSight. 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 It's CanesInSight.